Tonight, let's take a very slow, peaceful journey to a world that never turns its face away from its star. One side is always day, gently blazing and endlessly bright. The other is always night, softly frozen and star-studded. Between them lies a calm, dusky ribbon where light thins and shadow begins, the terminator, a narrow band that can feel like evening forever. Imagine yourself there, not as a thrill-seeker, not as a hero, but simply as a quiet caretaker of the little routines that keep you well. You move at an unhurried pace. You listen to instruments hum and sigh. You do small things carefully, and because you do, you rest. On a tidally locked exoplanet, morning never comes and night never ends. The sky keeps the same pose, the same color gradient, the same steady hush to the horizon. In this gentle story, you will inhabit that unchanging rhythm. You'll notice how a room can be warm on one wall and winter cool on the other. You'll lay a hand against a soft vibration and understand what it means for air to travel from the light side to the dark. You'll taste water that has been patiently captured from your own breath and coaxed through mineral beds. You'll lean into repetition and discover how soothing repetition can be. Our time together will unfold in 4 unhurried parts. First, you'll settle into the ordinary, everyday motions of life along the terminator, the checks, the taps, the small adjustments, the steady breath. Then, as the story naturally drifts, you'll hear the calm biography of ideas, how people far away and long before you used dim light curves and quiet spectra to imagine such a place. After that, you'll explore a soft mystery, the possibility of a narrow living ring, and the patient ways heat and wind might allow it. Finally, you'll lift your perspective, listening to the contrast between those who live in modular shelters on the ground and those who watch serenely from orbit, seeing weather in wide arcs like brush strokes across a round canvas. You don't need to hold every detail. If your thoughts wander, that's welcome. You can come back at any time, and the room, the air, the slow twilight will still be here. Take a comfortable position. Let your jaw loosen. Let your shoulders become heavy against your pillow. Imagine the softest evening light you know, flattened into a gentle band that never hurries away. Imagine the quiet line between day and night, and imagine yourself right there, breathing slowly, listening to the same small sounds again and again. You wake to the familiar balance of temperatures. One wall of your narrow habitat radiates a quiet, dry warmth, as if a sunbeam has been folded into the panels and left to glow. The opposite wall carries a persistent cool, a thin bloom of frost behind its insulation. Between them, the air settles into a comfortable middle, and your blanket, seasoned by many nights, holds the memory of that balance. You open your eyes to a muted light, permanent dusk filtered through a dust-soft window, and you listen. There is the soft pulse of the air handler. There is the gentlest rumble of a pump easing heat from the warm wall toward the cool. There is the faintest shiver in the outer skin of the shelter, a sound like a long, patient exhale as winds far outside move from the bright side of the world toward the dark. The rhythm is unchanging. It reassures you. You inhale through your nose and count slowly, letting the breath sit a while, and then let it go. The gentle rhythm of life continues. You swing your feet to the floor, and the first motion is the same motion as every day. You touch the pressure readout with the back of your fingers, noticing the mild warmth of the screen and the steady green band of numbers. The habitat is whole. The seals are good. The room is calm. You tap the humidity sensor next. It answers with a small, contented chirp, and the number settles just where you expect. A narrow window that keeps your lungs comfortable and your condensation traps busy. The traps sing quietly from their place along the cool wall where moisture from breathing and cooking and washing is gathered as droplets on chilled plates and guided down into patient reservoirs. Day after day, the same cycle unfolds. You stand and stretch, moving slowly, so that your body has time to notice itself. The floor beneath your socks is firm and faintly textured to keep you from slipping in the cool hours. A subtle mineral scent, not sharp, not metallic, rises from the water cartridge as the purifier wakes. You unscrew the top with practiced fingers and check the filter bed. Layers of fine grains, each chosen to catch what the last one did not. You shake the container gently and see the surface tension hold a clear meniscus, the way a calm pond holds the sky. The water will taste like itself today, quiet, slightly heavy, honest water with a memory of the minerals it passed. You take a sip and let it sit on your tongue. The taste is familiar and kind. Your breakfast is deliberately simple. A soft, steamed grain that grows in the hydroponic tray, a protein paste you've seasoned 100 careful ways until the seasoning itself feels like home, and a handful of crisp leaves, the edges still cool from the low-light garden. The garden's little sun, more lamp than star, purrs softly to itself. You pinch a leaf and feel how the plant offers itself back to the air, sweet and green. You place your bowl on the warmer, built into the bright side wall, and sit with it a while, spoon resting, steam rising. You eat slowly. You breathe slowly. The gentle rhythm of life continues. After breakfast, your hands follow a sequence that has worn itself into your muscles. It is not urgent. It is not dramatic. It is simply what you do. You move to the panel along the warm wall and open the hinged faceplate. Inside, the heat exchanger murmurs, a long coil sitting between two worlds, the dayward heat it tames and the nightward chill it manages. You read the temperatures, watch them match their little set points, unchanging, modest, reliable. A new gasket on a valve here, a faint smear of thermal paste smoothed to a whisper-thin sheen there. Each touch is quiet care. You cross to the cool wall and check the condensation trays. There is a neat line of droplets, each one fat and patient, collected along the lip of the tray. You trace a finger beneath, and the cool dampness is a pleasant surprise each time. You empty the trays into the reservoir, and the water meets itself with a round, soft sound. You tilt the reservoir to see if any bubbles linger in the corner, and then right it again. The system thanks you in small, wordless ways, a steadier tone from the pump, a quietly even flow. At the mid-room console, the barometer tells a small, ordinary story, a gentle sway and pressure as outside winds adjust. On this world, air likes to move in large, patient circles. Warmth builds on the day side and sets air rising very slowly, while the night side, steadfast and cold, invites that air to sink and flow back. The console displays this as delicate lines that curve from bright to dark, a braided ribbon you've come to recognize. You watch for a moment, not to be vigilant, but because watching is part of the comfort of living here. The lines drift like slow handwriting across the screen. You nod to yourself. The gentle rhythm of life continues. Your clothing is simple and thoughtful, a base layer that wicks and breathes, An outer layer that holds warmth without taking much space. A collar that seals neatly against your neck. You stretch your arms into the sleeves and feel the quiet, even pressure of air against your skin. The inside air, calm and friendly, holding its ground against the outside air that presses lightly, differently, always migrating along the terminator. You run a finger along the small pocket that contains your personal sensor, heart rate, oxygen saturation, the warmth at your wrist. The numbers are steady. You are steady. It is time to step into the vestibule. The vestibule is a little room that never hurries. Its job is to sit between worlds, and it does so with gentle dignity. You close the inner door and listen to the seal, accept its work. The vestibule light glows a soft amber, and a quiet fan equalizes pressure by the smallest amount. You watch the needle drift, then pause. You place your gloved hand against the outer door and feel the faintest cool. On some days, it is the faintest warmth. The line is so fine, the quiet line between day and night, that a step to the left feels different from a step to the right. You stand in the middle with your breath, with your patience. You open the outer door. Outside, the air carries the hush of distance. The sky is a gradient that never changes quickly. Pale bronze low over the dayward horizon, then a deepening slate, then a thin seam of blue-gray where stars begin to notice themselves, and then the nightward, black, rich and velvet, sprinkled with points of steady light. You move methodically across the short walkway to your instruments. The walkway rails sigh very softly, a reminder that the structure meets the air and the air meets the structure, and both agree gently to share their forces. Your first task is the intake. It sits on the cool side of your little station, where the air is dense and calm enough to be persuaded into the habitat. A fine frost rims the mesh. You brush it with a soft tool, slow strokes that keep the crystals whole until they fall. They do not bite your skin. They do not sting. They simply sparkle and drift like tiny mirrors of the nightward stars. The intake sighs a little deeper as its path clears. You listen to the change. A small change is a good change. The gentle rhythm of life continues. Beyond the intake, the radiation panels hang like dark banners turned toward the night. They do their work silently, shedding the habitat's extra warmth into the deep sky. You tilt one panel a few degrees, a motion small enough to be elegant. The hinge moves as though it has practiced its movement all its life. The panel meets a slightly cooler angle and thanks you in the language of temperatures, settling to their desired commas and decimals. You check the numbers and imagine them smoothing themselves out like fabric laid flat on a table. No creases, no stress, just a nice, even spread. To your left, toward the day, a bank of mirrors gleams without glare, their surfaces treated to sip at the light rather than swallow it. They collect enough energy to keep the little world inside alive, but not so much that anything hurries. You look at their slow tilt, coordinated like a calm school of fish. Each mirror's movement is small, like the shifting of a dozing body to a more comfortable position. You listen to the whisper of their motors. The whisper is familiar, and familiarity is gentle. You walk to the ground-level humidity drum. It sits half in shadow, half in light, designed to straddle the boundary as you do, to drink from both sides of the world at once. Warm air gives up its moisture gladly when it meets the cool interior. You uncap a port and draw out a sample. The water is clean. though it will pass again through filters that polish its taste into that quiet honesty you appreciate. You label the sample with the date and time. The letters curve a little on your wristboard as your gloved hand writes, and you pause to enjoy how writing has weight here. Slow, dignified, legible. A step farther brings you to the windmast. It clacks very softly as it turns, but never sharply, never in a way that asks too much of your attention. The mast's little vanes measure direction and speed. They point today a few degrees more toward the night than yesterday. You look at the sky's gradient and nod. The dayward air is a touch warmer, and so the balance shifts. Nothing urgent, just the planet breathing. You record the numbers and you add a note. Slight, nightward drift. All within usual pattern, you feel the comfort of patterns repeating. On the ground, the regolith sifts around the base of your boots with the texture of dry sand that has forgotten rivers. It is not hostile. It is not welcoming. It is simply there, full of minerals that your filters will patiently learn, one by one, how to taste and tame. You kneel and collect a small tray's worth. The grains whisper against one another as they settle. You tilt the tray and watch them slide like a soft, slow tide. A few will end up in the mineral column today, a slender cylinder inside that reads the story of the soil, what it can give, what it would rather keep, what it has carried from places bright and places dark. You circle the habitat once more before going in. This is more ritual than requirement. You lay your gloved palm on the skin of the shelter and feel the faint vibration of the pumps that keep temperature and pressure in their narrow, friendly bands. You check a seam with your eyes, not because you expect a flaw, but because seeing reassures you. You look at the sky again, letting your gaze follow the soft line where day fades to night. It is easy to imagine this line as a path laid forward, always there, never ending. You take a breath and feel your chest expand against the suit. You release it, unhurried. The vestibule welcomes you back with the same amber glow. You close the outer door, and the very faint difference in pressure settles like a sigh. The inner door opens, and the room greets you the way a familiar room does, by being exactly itself. The warmth on one wall, the cool on the other, the calm in the middle. You remove your outer layer and place it where it belongs. Everything has a place here. Every item sits easily in the hand. Every motion is a motion you have made many times and will make many more. Midday, which is not a time but a feeling, is good for maintenance. You seat yourself at the workbench and open the mineral column. The grains you collected trickle into their chambers, each chamber a different sort of kindness. One draws out calcium, one is patient with magnesium, one negotiates with iron, another with the faintest traces of salts that do not belong in your tea. You run a standard rinse, then a slower one. You write down the values not because a machine couldn't, but because writing teaches your hands the same calm your breath has learned. You turn the page, and the rustle is like leaves. The gentle rhythm of life continues. When you pause, you notice again the small music of your home, the quiet fan, the shy buzz of the hydroponic lamp, the occasional tick in the panel as materials adjust by fractions of a degree. Outside, wind travels its huge, lazy path from the world's bright face to its night face, but you experience it here as a barely audible, faraway ocean. When you stand, your legs feel steady. When you sit, the chair holds you, as it always does. When you drink, The water tells the same simple truth it told this morning. You check the garden next. The leaves are plump and confident under low light. You touch the growing medium, cool, damp, springy. You listen to the drip line take its turn, then rest. You trim 2 stems with an easy hand and place them gently into a tray where roots will form. It is possible to be very far from Earth and still keep a green habit alive. The plants do not know where they are, only that you are patient and predictable. You hum without thinking. The tune has no notes you can name. It is just the rhythm of moving from one small thing to another, making each small thing a little better than it was. By the time you return to the console, the outside lines have drifted a little more. You mark another entry. Your handwriting is the same as it was yesterday, as it will be tomorrow. Clear, rounded, calm. You glance at a diagram you keep taped to the console frame, a sketch of the world's air moving like a shawl from day to night and back again. You do not need the diagram, but its presence is soothing, the way a well-worn recipe card can be soothing even when you know the recipe by heart. As the not-quite evening deepens into the same not-quite evening it always is, you prepare your simple meal. Steam, softness, warmth. You let a spoon rest in the bowl and watch a thin ribbon of vapor curl in the steady light. Your thoughts drift to the line outside, the quiet line you walked along today, the line settlers have learned to inhabit with care, the line that would be harsh to someone who hurried, or someone who forgot to listen, or someone who believed that novelty is a virtue. Here, novelty is rare and therefore precious. But routine is what sustains you. Routine is what would allow you to last a night on a tidally locked world. And routine is what, without practice, would make a newcomer's first night feel very long. After dinner, you run your fingertips along the warm wall, then the cool. You feel the world's 2 moods in your hands. You sit with a cup that warms your palms. You read a page from a manual even though you do not strictly need to, because the gentle certainty of instructions is a comfort. You stretch and let your neck loosen. The day has not changed, and yet you have tended it, and so it feels complete. You lay down and let the blanket remember your shape. You listen once more to the soft chorus of your shelter, the tiny instruments, the shy pump, the even breath that is not yours, but lives alongside yours. The gentle rhythm of life continues. Your eyes grow heavy, as they always do at this hour that is not an hour. Your mind knows that if you wake again in the middle of your sleep, the light won't have changed, and that thought is restful. You will do the same quiet things tomorrow and the next day, and as long as you wish to stay. And as you rest, another rhythm begins to rise in the background, the rhythm of memory and discovery, not yours, but belonging to patient minds far away, long ago, or perhaps not so long. The people who looked at faint dips in starlight and whispered to each other, "I think there's a world there." The ones who traced thin lines in spectra and said, "I think there's air." We will meet them gently in their labs and observatories, where the night was not endless, but the work was patient. For now, let the line between day and night soften in your thoughts. Let the room become a cradle of familiar temperatures. Let your breath be a small tide. The gentle rhythm of life continues. We move now, softly and without hurry, from the little world inside your shelter to rooms where people, far away and long ago, or perhaps only yesterday, learned to notice worlds that never turn. Imagine yourself stepping into a quiet corridor lined with closed doors. Behind each door is a different kind of listening. Some rooms listen for light that dims by the smallest fraction. Some listen for colors that shift by the width of a whisper. Some listen for warmth that brightens and fades over many slow hours. You place your hand on each door in turn. You feel the hush that comes with careful work. You breathe in, and the gentle rhythm of discovery continues. The first door opens to a table with a small lamp and a notebook lying open, the page filled with simple lines. This is the early language of transit photometry, watching a star hold steady, and then, very slightly, not. A planet slips in front, and the star's light falls by a margin so small you might miss it if you blinked. But they did not blink. They watched. They wrote. They saw the dip begin, curve inward, and return. You can picture a pencil moving slowly as the curve is traced by hand, because in those first years, that is what it felt like, drawing out a whisper until it had a shape you could point to. Someone, in that soft light, looked at the little U-shaped dip and said in a voice barely above the breath, "There." It was a small word, but it changed the map of possible places. Past that room, another door admits you into a cooler space, shelves lined with spectrographs and prisms, the faint perfume of metal and careful cleaning solutions. Here, light is not only bright or dim, it is threaded into colors. A star's white glow is drawn out like yarn, and in that yarn are missing strands, thin, dark lines where atoms and molecules have taken their share. The researchers in this room learned to read those lines the way you might read the veins in a leaf. During a transit, a sliver of starlight passes through the planet's thin edge, and the edge, if it has air, leaves a signature. Sodium, perhaps. Water vapor, perhaps. Carbon-bearing molecules, maybe. Not shouted, not announced. Simply there, if you look long enough and quietly enough. Another door opens onto a dim room where people watch light change over time, not because of a transit, but because the planet, on its journey, shows different faces. These faces are not faces like yours or mine, but gentle variations in brightness. The day side warm and glowing, the night side cool and reserved, the boundary between them a patient gradient. This is the art of phase curves, the light of a star and its planet drawn into a circular calendar, watched as it rises and falls and rises again. In the early years, this was done for big worlds, hot ones close to their stars, the kind that offered large signals. But practice, as with your morning rituals, makes subtle work steadier. The curves smoothed, the noise quieted, instruments grew less fussy. The glow from a strange hemisphere became, little by little, a weather note. When people first imagined tidally locked climates, the permanent day, the permanent night, the first models were simple. Imagine, they said gently, a world with one bright face and one dark face, and let the air and the water move between them as they would. Suppose the air is thin, they said. Perhaps it collapses, freezing on the dark side into quiet frost. Suppose the air is thicker. Perhaps it forms broad rivers of wind, moving heat with patient efficiency. Suppose there is an ocean. Perhaps it shuttles warmth under the terminator like a slow conveyor. They drew boxes on graph paper. They wrote equations that fitted into the boxes. They let the boxes speak to one another in cautious steps. And in those steps, they found patterns that were not dramatic, but were dependable. Over time, those boxes grew into whole worlds inside computers, quiet worlds you could turn and look at without leaving your chair. They are called circulation models, but you don't need the formal name to feel what they tried to do. They set a sun in one place, fixed the planet's rotation so that one point always faced that sun, and they asked the air, "What will you do?" The answer arrived as colors that drifted across a digital globe. Gentle reds where heat found a home, soft blues where coolness settled, thin bands of cloud curling near the substellar point, wisps gathering along the terminator as rising light and falling dark met and traded courtesies. In these animations, and they were soft, almost meditative to watch, researchers saw something calming. Even with one face always in day and one face always in night, a world could find balance if its air had enough patience and its surface had a way to share. In the observatories, the nights were not endless, but the work was unhurried. People took turns at the controls, wrapped in sweaters against the chill of dome air. They kept tea at hand, and they taped small notes to consoles, reminders in a handwriting that bent its letters like reeds in a mild current. Don't forget lamp calibration. Check guiding drift every 30 minutes. Breathe. Data arrived as streams of numbers, not beautiful at first glance, but full of promise. The promise was that within those numbers lived the outline of a place that would never know sunrise or sunset, and yet would know weather. Far above, in the quiet of space, instruments watched in wavelengths the ground could not easily see. They measured the warmth of day sides and the cool of night sides. They watched as a planet slipped behind its star, the secondary eclipse, and then reemerged. That small difference before and after held a temperature in it, and the team would let the curve settle and settle and settle until a number appeared that felt true. There were days when the curve refused to smooth, and those were days for patience and perhaps for a walk under real sky. And there were days when the curve lay down like a well-made bedspread, no creases, no strain. And those were days to smile gently and make another note. People began to speak quietly of maps. Not maps with mountains and rivers, but maps of brightness. They devised careful methods to use the way a planet's light waxed and waned to sketch, in the most modest and approximate way, a design on its surface. A warm spot shifted east or west, perhaps. A set of clouds lingering under the star point. A band of higher reflectivity, along the place where perpetual evening might cool rising air into a gentle haze. The maps were not exact, and nobody pretended they were, but they were consistent, and consistency has its own beauty. Back in the modeling rooms, the people with digital globes shared tea with the people who watched stars, and together they compared notes. If we see the warm spot a little to the right of the substellar point, someone said, stirring sugar into a small mug, could that be winds carrying heat before it has time to rise? It could, someone else murmured, tracing a finger over a plot. And if the air is thick enough, the night may not be as cold as we once feared. They spoke the way you speak when you are in a library, softly, aware that other thoughts are at work nearby, aware that new thought begins best in quiet. A different room, in a different building, held a different kind of listening. Here, teams tried to subtract the star's voice to hear the planets more clearly. They stacked many nights of data atop one another until the accidental noises canceled out, leaving behind a signal as delicate as a thread. Cross-correlation, retrievals, inversions, methods with names that could sound busy, were, at their heart, ways of honoring subtlety. If a molecule in a planet's air borrowed a color of starlight during transit, these methods found the absence and said, yes, this shade is missing by a small and trustworthy amount. If the day side glowed brighter at certain wavelengths than the night, these methods took the glow and said, here is a degree or two that we can believe. Not every attempt worked. Sometimes a signal that seemed sure dissolved on closer inspection, the way frost on your intake mesh turns to a drift and slips away. The teams learned to let go without disappointment. There was always another star, another set of nights, another way to fold the data so that the true parts rested on the top. No headlines were needed, no drums, just the steady practice of trying again, gently, until the shape that remained felt inevitable. As the years gathered, a picture formed in small, accumulating strokes. Worlds around cool, red stars seemed likely to be tidally locked, because those stars are light and their habitable orbits are close. The models suggested that if such a world kept a modest blanket of air, thicker than Mars perhaps, thinner than Earth, then circulation could carry daytime warmth across to the night side and return cool air along the surface, making the Terminator a place of quiet exchange rather than a sharp wall. Some models drew clouds under the unending day, pale shields that softened the light. Some drew cloud belts near the boundary line, places where rising air, cooled by evening that never ends, condensed into protective decks. In all of them, the idea of collapse, air freezing out on the night side, grew less and less likely when the planet had even a little help. A greenhouse gas or two, an ocean to move heat below the surface, a landscape that traded warmth and coolness without complaint. You can imagine the margins of their notebooks, tidy sketches of a world bisected with arrows curling from light to dark. Small labels, jets, return flow, cold trap, written in pencil because pencil forgives revision. The pencils grew dull and were sharpened, ideas grew bold and were softened. Along the way, someone pinned a printout to a corkboard, a simple two-color map of a tidally locked planet's temperatures. Another person added a note in the corner, terminator, temperate. A third underlined that word not once but twice, politely. In the archives of these rooms, you would find email threads with subject lines like phase curve reanalysis, Terminator cloud deck hypothesis, circulation stability at low rotation rate. They read, for the most part, like a shared meditation. I think our prior was too strict. Loosening it reveals a slightly cooler night side. Agreed. This aligns with the model when we nudge the albedo up by a small amount. Let's try the retrieval with a gentler temperature gradient. Their language is technical, but their approach is not unlike your own. Adjust, observe, wait. Adjust, observe, wait. The gentle rhythm of discovery continues. When newer instruments took their place in orbit, the rooms grew a little brighter, not with noise, but with hope. The sensitive eyes could divide light more finely, weigh warmth more precisely, and sit on a single star for a long, restful time. Teams planned observations the way you plan your maintenance, carefully, with allowances for what might change subtly and what must remain steady. They wrote proposals that promised no fireworks, only clarity. We will obtain a phase curve and look for shifts in the hot spot. We will measure the depth of the secondary eclipse at multiple wavelengths to constrain the dayside temperature. We will search for water vapor at the terminator. The proposals were granted. The telescopes watched. The numbers came very slowly, like snow that doesn't fall, but appears. From these numbers, a new humility emerged. Worlds have their own minds. Some tidally locked giants wore thick cloud coats where none had been expected, brightening their faces in ways that puzzled and then delighted. Some let their hottest spots slide east, carried by winds that never tire. Some showed that even in a world of extremes, evening can be a mediator, a place where water gathers, where temperatures rest, where the air takes a long, slow breath. All of this was gathered in tables and figures and careful paragraphs, and then in talks delivered in rooms with lights dimmed just enough to let slides glow softly. Meanwhile, the climate modelers refined their worlds. They slowed the rotation rates, lengthened the days until days became forever, and watched as atmospheric jets reorganized into wider, lazier streams. They exaggerated the contrast between day and night to test whether integrity held. They played with surface types, rocky, ocean, mixed, always noting how small changes calmed or sharpened the gradients. A little more greenhouse effect warmed the night just enough. A little more reflectivity cooled the day to a bearable brightness. With oceans, heat traveled not only above but beneath, crossing under the terminator like a polite courier. With land, night-side basins sometimes cradled cold air like bowls cradling water. Nothing rushed, nothing insisted. Balance, when it came by patience. It is a gentle thing to watch knowledge accumulate by teaspoons. Someone puts down a teaspoon of data. Someone else adds a teaspoon of analysis. A third brings a teaspoon of modeling, and another refines the previous spoon by stirring. After a while, after many evenings of quiet work, you have enough to sip, and it tastes like understanding. The first taste might be plain. Later, you may add a little spice, a specific molecule found, a windswept hotspot precisely located, a tentative cloud map sketched at the terminator. But even plain understanding is nourishing. In the hallway outside these rooms, display cases show the tools that made the listening possible, a grating that once separated light into its discrete colors, a detector that smiled at photons so faint you could count them, a mock-up of a starshade petal, black and matte, designed to cast a precise shadow, a sample of mirror, polished to a quiet perfection. There are photographs, too, of people in winter coats standing beside domes, their breath showing in the air, their smiles small and satisfied. Underneath, hand-lettered captions. First clean transit night, phase curve on a good run, cloud talk, community seminar. If you pause and listen here, you will notice that the rooms share a single heartbeat. It is the sound of attention practiced without strain. The data come when they come. The models converge when they are ready. The papers are written when the story is steady enough to tell. The findings are not advertised as triumphs. They are offered as careful steps, from star dim to planet found, from color line to air inferred, from warmth map to weather hinted, from possibility to plausibility. This is the biography of an idea told in quiet chapters, and so, by the time you return in your mind to your little shelter along the terminator, you are accompanied by a community of calm companions, observers, modelers, instrument builders, archivists, and readers. They stand at your shoulder not as a chorus, but as a presence, the way a well-organized drawer stands ready when you reach for a tool. You are living a scenario they first learned to imagine. You are walking a boundary they first traced with pencil lines and code. Their patience made your routine possible. You set the notebook down on the table in your habitat and look once more at the sketch pinned beside your console. The arrows from day to night and back again now carry voices behind them, voices that worked late but gently, rose early but slowly, and spoke to one another in careful tones. You breathe the way they breathed. You test a valve the way they tested assumptions. You watch a gauge settle the way they watched a curve grow still. And as your thoughts drift at the edge of this segment, they drift toward a question that waits politely for its turn. It is not a dramatic question. It is a garden question. If the Terminator is temperate not only in temperature but in temperament, could it host a ring of life? Not a riot of life. A ring of modest ecosystems that learn the rhythm of unending evening. Could heat move gently enough, clouds form kindly enough, and waters gather quietly enough to make patches of soil and sea where living things do not hurry and do not fear? We will not answer in haste. We will look with the same patience the discoverers taught us. For now, let your breath lengthen and your shoulders soften. We will step in a moment into the soft mystery of heat and wind, of cloud decks and aquifers, of agriculture that trusts the dusk. The gentle rhythm of discovery continues. We turn now, very slowly, from the biography of gentle discovery to the soft puzzle that sits at the heart of your world. You are living on a narrow ribbon, an ever-twilight band where day releases its warmth and night receives it with patience. You have learned the rituals that keep you well, and you have met the people who imagine this place into plausibility. Now, in a calm and unhurried way, we will ask the question that drifts like a low cloud over the Terminator. Could this quiet line between day and night truly cradle life? Not noisy life, not hurried life, but modest ecosystems that breathe in time with the planet? We won't argue. We won't insist. We will simply walk the boundary, look carefully, and let the possibilities settle like dew. Imagine stepping outside at your usual pace. The sky holds its permanent gradient, honeyed bronze toward the star, ink blue toward the night. A soft seam above you where the two agree to meet. The wind, which can be a bold traveler high above, moves near the surface with the restraint of a library whisper. You feel it graze your sleeves, not tearing, not pushing, just reminding you that air too prefers a rhythm. Heat, from the bright side, is on its long journey toward the dark, and you are standing where that journey slows and redistributes. If life were to choose a path here, this is the path. A corridor where temperatures forget extremes, where light is low but reliable, and where water pauses in the open hand of evening. You walk along a ridge of compacted regolith, and as you do, you think about the air above you as if it were water, broad currents aloft, gentle eddies near the ground. High up, the planet's breath can race, but down here, texture matters. Pebbles, ridges, porous screens, the very shape of the land, all of it turns rushing into murmuring, gusts into flows, flows into drafts. Even on Earth, a thin line of trees calms a field. A snow fence teaches wind to drop what it carries. Along the Terminator, natural ridges and artificial windbreaks would do the same. Winds that could shred soft tissues in the open sky become sheltering breezes when they meet the right patterns. The lesson is simple and soothing. Intensity can be softened by design. Above the substellar point, the permanent day, cloud decks may gather like a pale canopy. They would brighten the dayward face, reflecting light back to space. and in doing so, they would shade the air beneath. Here at the boundary, that shading could matter. Clouds formed under the patient lifting of warm air can drift outward, thinned and ribboned by the circulation, and arrive as translucent veils over the terminator. Light filtered through cloud is different light, diffuse, low angle, kind to eyes and leaves. It softens contrasts. It smooths temperatures. Under such soft light, photosynthetic life, if it exists, would not chase brief noon. It would accept a long evening and learn to sip. Picture a slope that faces the day but tilts gently toward the boundary. The ground is cool enough to condense moisture at nightward hours, yet warm enough by dayward influence to release it again. On rocks, you might imagine dark films forming, microbial mats that prefer dimness and stability. Their pigments could be tuned to reddish light if the stars cool, or to the faint near-infrared glow that lingers even when direct brightness is soft. Every few centimeters, tiny differences in texture make microclimates. A wind-sheltered wrinkle, a sun-dappled pocket, a damp patch under a translucent pebble. In each little niche, a slightly different community learns the same slow lesson: conserve, trade, and wait. Water, the quiet architect of habitability, would move in ways that suit an endless dusk. On the day side, sublimation and melt can load the air with vapor. On the night side, that vapor would prefer to settle. In between, along your band, it pauses. Fog could form here, not thick, not dramatic, just a regular hush of droplets each morning. That isn't morning. A mesh lifted above the ground would lace itself with dew. Threads would bead, beads would gather, lines would trickle. Underground, where temperature changes are even smaller, aquifers might thread the subsurface like sleepy roots. Melt from dayward highlands could creep beneath the terminator, warmed here and there by mild geothermal pockets, and then present itself in seeps along shadowed gullies. You kneel and imagine cupping a handful, cool, mineral-rich, faintly heavy on the tongue, the same honest taste you know from your filters, but arriving naturally, patiently, without any machinery at all. If there are soils, they likely form by small, persistent acts. On the day side, thermal stress fractures rock into grains. On the night side, frost wedging and quiet condensation break it further. Along the boundary, tiny films of water help minerals exchange partners. Dust loaded with salts arrives on the breeze and is pinned down by damp. Microbes, if they emerge, make glues and webs that trap more dust, sheltered in the lee of stones, in the shade of a low ridge, inside the gentle labyrinth of a porous tile you or nature have set in place. The soil that results is thin but loyal. It doesn't run away in a single storm because it is stitched. Day after day, the same cycle unfolds. Pebble by pebble, film by film, a substrate for roots and filaments appears. With soil and water and soft light, the mind drifts to agriculture, not fields that shout with color, but gardens that speak in low tones. You picture long, narrow beds oriented along the line so that each bed can drink the same diluted light. Instead of tall crops that invite stress, you imagine ground-hugging varieties with thick, waxy leaves, shade-tolerant greens that are content with diffuse illumination, tubers that use the ground as their blanket, storing energy slowly without hurry. You can see trellises that are more like lattices, porous to wind, gentle on pressure, casting a gauze of shade by day and catching condensation by night. Some beds are capped with clear, breathable films stretched over flexible ribs, making small climates inside the larger one, each one tuned by hand, until the curve of humidity and temperature settles into a friendly shape. In shallow basins, photobioreactors meander like calm streams, transparent tubes where microalgae drift under low light, content with the gentle gradient the sky provides. The fluid inside moves at a patient pace. Bubbles rise with quiet regularity. Harvest is a soft decanting, not a rush. Along the edges, fungal beds, a mycelial understory, help turn plant waste into soil, seaming together what would otherwise crumble. The smell here is faint and good, a hint of clean water, a memory of green, the neutral, comfortable mineral tone of ground that has been worked but not abused. You walk between the beds and feel how even your footsteps have become part of the plan. Paths designed to slow wind, to return moisture to the air, to keep the garden's breath steady. Of course, the Terminator is not a single climate. It frays and folds. There are dayward coves where warmth lingers, nightward shelves where cool gathers, and in between, ledges that hold the balance like a practiced hand. Life would come to these differences the way people come to neighborhoods. Some preferring a warmer corner, some a cooler nook, some the exact seam where the two greet without fuss. On a dark-facing cliff, ribbons of frost might appear each cycle and recede, leaving moisture for hardy lichens that etch slow patterns into the rock. In a shallow depression, fog might pool at regular hours, and there, delicate mosses, or something that plays the moss role, could weave green into gray. You think about time. On a planet without sunrise or sunset, what is a day? For a living thing, a clock can be a breath, a tide, a thermal ripple, a pressure rhythm, a regular swing in the direction of the breeze. Along the Terminator, a predictable oscillation may be found not in light, but in the way air thickens and thins, the way clouds gather and loft away, the way the boundary layer deepens with calm and shallows with faint stirrings. Plants, or their analogues, might open pores when the fog arrives, close them when it lifts, and measure that pulse as faithfully as a sunflower tracks the sun on Earth. Burrowing creatures, if creatures emerge, might time their surface moments to the softest winds, listening for the low hum that says, now. Microbes could be indifferent to cycles, simply letting chemistry be their metronome, curving toward gradients wherever gradients form. The question of winds returns, because it always does. Could they tear life apart? High above, perhaps, speeds are impressive. But ecosystems rarely live where air is loud. They live where texture turns fast into slow, where canyons guide gusts into whispers, where the underside of a rock is a country, where a mesh breaks a gale into 100 streams that cancel one another out. You run your gloved hand across a porous panel and feel the concept more than the force. 1,000 tiny passages, each asking the wind to divide and divide again, until what remains is a breath you barely notice. Add to this the habit of low growth, of hugging the ground, of folding when stressed and unfolding when calm, and you see how life could choose shapes that go with the grain of the planet rather than against it. There is also the matter of light's character. If the star is cool and red, the spectrum leans toward longer wavelengths. Leaves, if we can call them that, might deepen their pigments to drink that light. Surfaces could appear almost black to the eye, not as a warning, but as a way to keep the feast efficient. Or they might use mirror tricks, microstructures that trap light in shallow angles, turning dimness into sufficiency. You lift a translucent pebble and imagine filaments beneath that look dark at first, then shimmer with color, when seen up close, like oil on water, but quieter. Nothing glows, nothing flashes. Everything is tuned to just enough. Underground, where stillness is easier to find, aquifers feed galleries of rootlets and hyphae. The temperature is set by the planet's own slow heat. The humidity is generous. Chemistry proceeds at the pace of patience. If animals, or their analogues, ever appear, perhaps they appear here first, as pale, small bodies that move like careful thoughts through a maze of pores. They would not need eyes. They would need noses for minerals and ears for pressure. Surface life, if it climbs out of these quiet rooms, does so with reluctance and cleverness. A body plan that folds into the wind, a skin that welcomes fog, a gait that wastes nothing. The food web, then, is not a pyramid, but a ring right at the edge of light and dark. Producers, microalgae films, lichen-like crusts, low mats, sip from the diluted sky. Decomposers sit close by, ready to receive what is shed. Between them, grazers pass like slow shadows. There are no stampedes. There are standstills punctuated by neat, efficient meals. Dead matter is not a tragedy. It is a resource, folded back into the soil like a blanket being smoothed. In such a place, the word waste quickly loses meaning. If you picture weather, picture it in lowercase. Showers, not storms. Mists, not squalls. Breezes, not gales. At least where life chooses to settle. Elsewhere, beyond the gentle labyrinths that you and geology can provide, the planet may still show big gestures. Jet streams far overhead, a sparkling field of high clouds at the dayward center, a pool of very cold air over the deep night. But the boundary where life makes its home would be curated by countless small edits, like a manuscript marked by a careful hand. A windbreak here, a ribbed panel there, a trellis that doubles as a condenser, a berm that asks drifting dust to stop and rest. Over years, these edits become the landscape. Natural features, the long backbone of a ridge, the deep patience of a basin, do the heavy lifting, and biology writes its footnotes in the margins. You walk farther and find a gentle depression where settlers might try terminator orchards, not tall trees, not heavy branches, but shrubs with flexible canes, pruned low. Their leaves are small, thick, and matte. Their skins collect fog and return it to the roots. Between rows, ground cover keeps the dust behaved. In the nightward rows, the shrubs prefer the cool. In the dayward rows, they prefer the light. The harvest is steady rather than dramatic, a bowl filled a little each day until the bowl is full. Some fruits are eaten fresh, others are dried slowly in cabinets that face just so, accepting enough dayward warmth to dehydrate without spoiling, protected from night by shutters that breathe. At the edge of the orchards, you imagined shallow pools paved with dark stone, solar ponds in reverse. They lose heat to the night sky, and in doing so, invite moisture to condense on collection roofs that arch above them. The roofs are framed with flexible ribs, like the interior of a shell. When the breeze freshens, the ribs flex and return. When the air is quiet, the film stays perfectly still, and droplets form a pattern that looks like a slowly shifting constellation. You watch them travel along tiny ridges to a waiting channel. Each bead is a decision made by physics to be helpful. There will be nights that lean colder, days that lean brighter, seasons defined not by sunrise and sunset, but by tiny shifts in the planet's orbit or star's temperament. During brighter spells, cloud decks may thicken and soften the light. During darker spells, aquifers and stores, grain silos, nutrient tanks, dried fruits in their fragrant cabinets, carry the community gently over the gap. This is another lesson of the Terminator. Resilience is a stockroom kept modestly full, and endurance is a habit made of small, repeatable tasks. If you lift your gaze from the ground to the idea of a larger biosphere, you might picture belts of different strategies encircling the world. Closest to the day, cloud-shaded plains with hardy mats and condensers. Closer to the night, rime-edged shelves with slow chemistries and creatures that nap more than they move. In the precise middle, the true Terminator, a necklace of oases where geology and design together persuade wind to spend less energy and water to spend more time. There, the ring of life is not continuous, but frequent, pearls on a thread that stretches all the way around the planet. And what of danger? On some days, the star may cough, a flare that brightens and fades. The world replies with its own protections, a sky that is not too thin, clouds that turn harsh light to gentle, a field of magnetic lines, perhaps, that guides particles away, a habit of living under edges and overhangs and water films. The story remains the same. Take what is large and meet it with many small things working together. The gentle rhythm of life continues. As you return at last to your shelter, you notice how your own routines echo the possible routines of the ring. You keep a windbreak. You harvest condensation. You guide flows with screens and ribs and panels. You store, you mend, you adjust, you wait. You realize that survival here is not a feat, but a culture. The culture of patient design. If ecosystems arise, they will not arrive as a thunderclap. They will accumulate like soil, a little today, a little tomorrow, held together by quiet glues. You pause with your hand on the vestibule door and think about the world above you, about orbit. From up there, the ring you walk would look like a soft band painted around a sphere, not sharp, not perfect, but consistent. Weather would be seen as slow brush strokes. Cloud decks would appear as pale caps. Oases would glitter at certain wavelengths when fog lifts and lays down again. Operators seated in a serene platform would see the pattern whole while you feel it local. Two truths, both useful. Two vantage points, both calm. In the next segment, we will widen our view gently and listen to the contrast between frontier settlers who live by texture and detail and the quiet minds in orbit who guide by panorama. Same planet, same ribbon of evening, different comforts. Before we drift upward, take a last breath of the air at your doorstep, the mild blend between warm and cool, the familiar mineral hint, the soft stitch of wind through meshes you placed by hand. Day after day, the same cycle unfolds. The gentle rhythm of life continues. We rise now, very gently, from the gardens and windbreaks at your doorstep to a wider view. You are still on the same world, still walking the quiet line between day and night, but you let your thoughts float upward as if carried by a calm updraft. Above, a platform circles in a patient path, a home in orbit that never feels the grit of ground, never leans into the wind, never tastes the faint minerals in condensed dew. Down here, settlers live in modular rooms that remember the weather with their walls. Up there, operators live in an architecture of constants. Same planet, different comfort. We will sit with both, without judgment, and notice how each way of living completes the other. Imagine first the orbital platform. It is not noisy. It is never rushed. The lighting follows a gentle curve that your eyes accept without thought. Air moves with the even confidence of a well-read sentence. The windows, small and layered, look not for spectacle, but for information. Broad arcs of cloud, a soft band where evening circles the planet like a ribbon, the pale cap of cloud that often rests over the bright side. You hear the murmur of circulation fans and the careful purr of gyros. Footsteps are soft by design. People speak in library voices because the work itself encourages quiet. Shift schedules are arranged like tides, long overlapping watches that drift one into another, so no one is hurried into sleep or jolted into work. The station's day is a composition of slow crescendos and slow fades. Exercise happens with elastic resistance and low-impact rhythm, bodies guided by straps and rails that hold you kindly while muscles remember their tasks. Meals arrive with a restrained elegance, bowls of simple grains, leaves from a sunlit growth wall, fruit coaxed from a compact greenhouse that keeps its own warm weather independent of the planet below. Water has the taste of practiced purity. Its journey is circular and calm. In a monitoring room lined with broad, low-brightness panels, operators trace weather in wide strokes. They do not point to storms. They point to trends. A cloud deck under the day star gently thickens. A nightward basin grows a little colder and then warms. The terminator brightens by a fraction in the near infrared, hinting at a transient haze that will likely lift by the next pass. They write notes that are letters to colleagues and postcards to the ground with a tone that is both professional and kind. Evening haze increasing along Sector 14. Expect better condensation yield tonight. The messages descend to the surface like folded paper birds, simple, useful, easy to carry. Now drift back to the line below. In your modular pod, the walls hold a memory of the day's tiny difficulties and tiny successes. A seal that needed 1/4 turn, a trellis that asked for a new rib, a windbreak that wanted a little more angle. You feel the surface as a partner that answers when you touch it. Tools have weight. Soil gives way and then holds. Water beads differently depending on which panel you place it upon. You exist in a neighborhood of textures, each one speaking softly about heat and pressure and time. The community here is patterned like its environment, small circles of expertise that overlap. Someone is patient with plants. Someone is steady with pumps. Someone reads the sky's gradient as if it were a mood. Apprentices learn by standing beside these people and repeating small tasks until the tasks become more than actions. They become a language. In the evenings that are always evenings, people step out to listen to the mesh sing and to feel the difference between one breath and the next. In the mornings that are not mornings, they share notes on their walls like the station shares notes on its panels, handwritten lists, tidy sketches, narrow numbers underlined once. Between orbit and ground, a quiet exchange continues. The platform sees the whole. The settlers feel the part. Operators send down gentle forecasts and slow advisories. Settlers send up measurements gathered by hand, dew yields, soil mineral shifts, how a new lattice condensed fog, with slightly better manners. The loop is not dramatic. It is dependable. The station adjusts its models. The ground adjusts its trellises. Both adjust their expectations, which is the most useful adjustment of all. The gentle rhythm of life continues. You might think of timekeeping here because time is different in different comforts. On the platform, days are divided by watches, and clocks are aligned to a standard that never sees a window. On the ground, lives are divided by routines. The first pressure check, the midday filter rinse, the quiet hour when condensation runs best. The station marks orbits. The ground marks tasks. Neither is wrong. Neither is right. Both are clocks that fall into step with human bodies. Governance is soft, too. The platform works by standing orders that describe what to do when nothing surprises, and by slim folders that describe what to do when something does. Folders that sit under a label that says, Quiet Mode. The ground works by a council of cycles, where the people who water and the people who wire and the people who watch the sky talk in a circle until a decision feels simple. Voting, when needed, is a raised finger, then a lowered hand. Most days, nobody votes. They iterate. They try a smaller trellis. They tilt a panel. They measure. They accept. Commerce, if the word applies, is an accounting of favors and energies. The platform shares maps, calibration constants, a small trick for making leaf surfaces shed water more politely. The ground shares minerals, dried herbs for tea, a seed line that proved unusually patient in diffuse light. There are formal shipments that follow well-worn paths and informal ones that ride along. Packages open to reveal things with mild scents and mild colors and mild uses. A filter cloth woven with a better mesh. A jar of tart preserves from a shrub that likes the nightward rose. A book of notes bound simply entitled Condensers, Notes and Drawings. Volume. 3 Education follows the same tone. On the station, you would find simulators where apprentices practice adjusting models with a calm hand, watching colors on a globe slowly smooth as parameters are nudged. On the ground, you would find benches where apprentices practice replacing gaskets without haste, seating them until the torque feels inevitable. Both forms of learning end with a small ceremony that is really a handshake. You are ready to do this slowly without me. The certificate is often a tool. On the station, a field guide of plots and what they tend to mean. On the ground, a torque wrench that will be used for decades. Even rest is a study in contrasts. In orbit, people sleep in cocoons that hold them with a careful, uniform pressure. Their dreams float in rooms where nothing clatters if it falls, because nothing falls. On the ground, people sleep in bunks that remember their shape, in rooms where one wall releases its stored dayward warmth and the other keeps a small, forgiving chill, and the center is exactly as expected. They are lulled by the shy ticking of materials adjusting by a fraction of a degree, by the hushed chord of pumps and fans that have learned to be part of the silence rather than challengers of it. Emergency practice exists in both places because careful people respect the improbable. The station runs still drills where everyone moves half speed on purpose, finding switches with a measured hand, speaking steps aloud with the softness of a lullaby. Close, check, breathe. The ground runs seal walks, where people circle their modules at an unhurried pace, touch each seam with 2 fingers, and confirm by sound and feel what the gauges already say. When something truly asks for attention, rarely and usually gently, the response is not panic, but choreography. The platform enters a mode named for calm. The ground places a new panel and then makes tea. Culture grows around these habits the way lichen grows around a stone, slowly, with good adhesion. Songs on the ground are short and repeating, built to be hummed while hands are busy. Stories in orbit are long and braided, made to be told in lounges while plots play softly on the wall. Cloud, haze, clear, cloud. Holidays come without a calendar. Someone finishes a difficult repair, and a meal is stretched a little longer. Someone completes a lovely set of maps, and the station dims its lights an extra notch and lets people gather at the little windows to watch the Terminator shine. The language of both places borrows from the other. Ground speech gathers phrases from orbit, arc, pass, phase, and uses them as metaphors for chores. Orbit speech gathers phrases from ground, bite, grit, mesh, and uses them to describe how a model should behave. When messages cross, they are written with care. The station does not command, it suggests. The ground does not demand, it requests. Both say thank you a little more often than they need to, because gratitude is a form of insulation that keeps communities warm. Logistics, the moving of things, follows routes that respect the planet's temperament. Capsules descend when the evening air is most stable. Parachutes open to the mild applause of breeze. Ground crews meet them with nets that flex and return, hands that do not reach until the load is still. Departures wait for sky windows that the platform draws with faint lines. If you go here now, you will use very little. Machines carry, people guide. Nothing hurries for the sake of hurrying. Everything moves because the next gentle step is ready for it. In these contrasts, a symmetry appears. The platform is a place where variables are tamed by design. The ground is a place where variables are persuaded by texture. The platform's comfort is consistency. The ground's comfort is familiarity. Each is tempted by the other's ease. The station sometimes longs to touch a tool and feel it answer. The ground sometimes longs to look at the whole ring at once and understand it in a single breath. And so the exchange continues. Tools traded for plots, leaves traded for lessons, until each place has a little of what the other values most. You return to your own room now, noticing how your habits fit into the large picture you have just held in your mind. You lay a hand on the warm wall and think of power budgets in orbit. You touch the cool wall and think of radiators that shine their heat into space. You set your cup beneath the condenser lip and think of maps that show fog thickening like a polite curtain. You are a small part of a wide system, and the wide system benefits from your small part. The gentle rhythm of life continues. Outside, the line between day and night is exactly where it was when you woke, and where it will be when you wake again. In orbit, someone is making a note. Temperate band stable, minor haze over sectors 9 to 12. On the ground, someone is adjusting a lattice by a finger's width. You feel no need to compare which comfort is better. You recognize that both are simply answers to the same quiet question. How shall we live here without noise for a very long time? In a moment, we will return to you, to your own quiet room in the present, and we will fold the journey closed like a well-loved map. We will rest your thoughts on the bed where you are, and we will invite sleep to continue what calm has begun. Before we do, take one last easy breath with the world, your world, this world of a calm horizon that never hurries away. Day after day, the same cycle unfolds. The gentle rhythm of life continues. We have walked the quiet line between day and night, and we have done it without hurry. We have stepped through a small room with a warm wall and a cool wall. We have listened to distant winds become gentle breath at the surface. We have visited patient minds who learned to notice worlds by faint dips and soft colors. We have lingered with a ring of possible life, gardens that trust the dusk, waters that travel slowly underground, cloud veils that turn bright into bearable. We have lifted to orbit and looked down with calm eyes, then returned to the ground where texture and touch make comfort. The journey was wide and it was soft. Now let the world we imagined become a smooth backdrop. Like a quiet painting hung on the far wall of your mind, you do not need to hold its details. You do not need to remember every instrument or every garden bed. If pieces dissolve, let them. If only one image remains, the gentle band where evening never ends, that is enough. You are back where you are, in your own room, in your own safe comfort. The air is familiar. The light is easy. Nothing asks anything urgent of you. Settle a little deeper where you are. If you'd like, let your eyes rest behind your lids as if looking toward that calm horizon. Notice the simple, friendly things around you. The weight of blankets that remember your shape. The steady support beneath. The way the fabric near your shoulders holds a trace of warmth. Take a slow breath in through your nose. Hold it for a quiet count of 1, 2, and let it go. Longer than the inhale, as if you are releasing a small task that can be finished tomorrow. Again, a slow breath in, a soft pause, and a longer breath out. With each gentle exhale, you come home a little more. Let your attention drift like an evening breeze across your body, unhurried, kindly. Start with your forehead. Imagine the muscles smoothing, like a page being laid flat. If a line remains, let it remain. It will soften on its own timeline. The gentle rhythm of rest continues. Your eyes, allow them to settle heavier in their place, as if 2 small stones have found the bottom of a clear pool. Your jaw, loosen it a finger's width, then let gravity do the rest. The tongue rests wide and easy. There is nothing to say, and nothing that needs saying. Your neck, picture a quiet column, warm at the front like the dayside wall, cool at the back like the nightside wall, and balanced in between. Your shoulders, let them fall away from your ears exactly as far as comfort allows, as if a careful hand has turned a valve 1/4 turn and the pressure is perfect now. Down your arms, feel a slow heaviness in your biceps, your forearms, your wrists, each finger releasing the tiny work it did today. If a finger wants to curl, let it curl. If it wants to lengthen, let it lengthen. Day after day, the same cycle unfolds. Across your chest, notice the gentle rise, the gentle fall. Breathing is your quiet wind circulation. Warmth moving, coolness returning, without any need to manage it. Your back. Imagine it supported like a panel set at the right angle, nothing pinched, nothing stretched. Each vertebra rests in its own little cradle. Your abdomen, soft, simple, unguarded. If it helps, imagine a small garden there, low light, patient growth, nothing forced. Your hips and legs, a sense of deep, friendly weight. Thighs softening, knees loose, calves and ankles easing into stillness. Your feet, a little warmth in the arches, toes uncurling, the last bits of effort slipping out like droplets from a condenser lip. If thoughts appear, let them pass you at walking speed. They do not need to stop. If a to-do list tries to speak, give it a pencil and a page in the next room and close the door softly. You can visit it in the morning. Tonight, there is only this: your breath, your body, and the sense that you are held. Bring back, just for a moment, the image of the Terminator, one side bright, one side dark, and you, somewhere in the calm seam. Imagine your blankets as that seam, a gentle balance between warm and cool, a middle where comfort lives. Picture your breath as the planet's slow circulation, moving warmth and ease through you with patient regularity. Nothing dramatic, nothing loud, just the body doing what bodies do when they are given permission to rest. Perhaps you remember the caregivers of that distant world, the tender of filters, the tiler of windbreaks, the grower of low orchards. You can be that caregiver for yourself now with the same small motions and the same soft tone. Tilt a thought a few degrees toward comfort. Brush a frost of worry from the mesh of your attention. Adjust a posture by the smallest amount until it feels inevitable. Write gently in the margins of your mind. Temperate. If you like a rhythm, you can borrow one. Inhale to a quiet count of 4. Pause for 2. Exhale for 6. Rest for 2. Repeat if it feels good, or don't. Even counting can be allowed to wander off and nap. Notice how safety feels in your room. There is a floor that will not move beneath you. There are walls that keep the weather at a polite distance. There is a door that knows when to be open and when to be closed. There is time enough. There is comfort enough. You have done enough for one day. If any part of you still feels the pull to stay awake, offer it a simple job. Listen for the softest sound you can hear, a distant appliance hum, the whisper of air, perhaps even your own pulse, and pretend you are an instrument operator, watching a steady line. When the line drifts, you let it settle. When the sound fades, you let it fade. When it returns, you nod. The gentle rhythm of rest continues. You can let the story dim now. The ring of evening can become thinner and thinner until it is only a trace. And even that trace can dissolve. If it doesn't, that's fine. It can keep rotating quietly at the edge of your awareness like a patient satellite. You do not need to tend it. The station in orbit can keep watch. The gardeners on the ground can do the small work. You may sleep. If you wake in the night, remember, on that tidally locked world, the light would be the same as before. Here, too, your bed will be the same as before. Your blanket will remember you. Your breath will know its way back to slow. You can rejoin the story at any point, or you can let it go completely and listen only to the present. Either way, you are safe. Before we close, one last slow breath together. In, a quiet pause, and out. Feel how the exhale opens the door a little wider for sleep to enter. Another breath, if you wish, or none at all. Just the natural tide of air moving at its chosen pace. You are warm enough. You are sheltered enough. Your body is allowed to be heavy. Your thoughts are allowed to be light. The quiet line between day and night is far away, and also, in a way, right here, where two comforts meet and agree to keep you well. And now, as our journey ends, you are back in your own quiet room. The world around you is peaceful and safe. You can let go of the day's thoughts and know that, unlike the challenges we explored, you are warm, secure, and ready for deep sleep. The gentle rhythm of life continues. The gentle rhythm of rest continues. The gentle rhythm of your breath continues. Good night.